Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre has announced a sweeping plan to combat Canada's fentanyl crisis, calling for life sentences for those convicted of trafficking, producing, or exporting over 40 milligrams of the lethal drug. Arguing that fentanyl dealers are responsible for mass murder, Poilievre frames his proposal as a necessary crackdown on the opioid epidemic that has claimed 50,000 Canadian lives.
President Trump has threatened to tariff Canada because of what he says is lethal drug flows. But whether or not we agree with him should not matter. It should not take a foreign leader to get the Liberals to wake up to the drug crisis that they have caused here at home. It should have been enough that we lost 50,000 of our people. We should crack down on drugs, not to please President Trump, but to ensure that not one more mother has to bury her face in her hands on learning that her son died of an overdose in a back alley somewhere. We must stop drugs to save our people and put Canada first. It starts with locking up mass traffickers and manufacturers of this poison with penalties that fit the crime. But what is that crime? Let's call fentanyl trafficking what it is. Mass murder. Selling 40 milligrams of this poison is enough to kill 20 people. It's like spraying bullets into a crowd. You might not know who you're killing, but it's certain someone will die. That's why I'm denouncing today, as part of my Canada First plan, that common sense conservatives will bring mandatory prison sentences. There will be life sentences for anyone caught trafficking, producing, or exporting over 40 milligrams of fentanyl. 40 milligrams is enough to kill 20 people. Anyone who's involved in trafficking that amount of fentanyl will get a life sentence. We will lock them up and we will throw away the key. And 15 years for traffickers caught with between 20 milligrams and 40 milligrams will be the new mandatory sentence. The people we will lock away are not nonviolent addicts. They are the victims. We will come to the rescue of victims and addicts. We will provide life-saving treatment. My message to anyone struggling with addiction today is have hope, hang on, help is on the way. My government will provide residential treatment. It will take people off the streets, provide them with detox, recovery, counseling, group therapy, sweat lodges for First Nations victims, and help them get into housing, a job, and back to their families. We will bring our loved ones home drug-free. Nor are we talking about the small-time dealer on a street corner, though he too will be punished. Rather, my law will go after the fentanyl kingpins who kill thousands of people each year. We will treat them like the mass murderers they are.
Selling 40 milligrams of this poison is enough to kill 20 people. It's like spraying bullets into a crowd, Poilievre declared in a press conference. You might not know who you're killing, but it's certain someone will die. Under his plan, traffickers caught with between 20 and 40 milligrams of fentanyl would face a mandatory 15-year sentence, while those dealing in quantities exceeding 40 milligrams would receive life behind bars. Poilievre insists his policy targets high-level traffickers rather than addicts, whom he describes as victims in need of life-saving treatment. The people we will lock away are not nonviolent addicts. They are the victims, Poilievre said. We will come to their rescue with residential treatment, detox, recovery counseling, and help them rebuild their lives. His plan, part of his broader Canada First plan, represents a stark departure from what he calls the soft-on-crime policies of the Liberal government. Poilievre argues that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's approach has allowed fentanyl to flood Canadian streets, drawing attention to former U.S. President Donald Trump's threats to impose tariffs on Canada over alleged drug flows. We should crack down on drugs not to please President Trump, but to ensure that not one more mother has to bury her face in her hands on learning that her son died of an overdose in a back alley, Poilievre said. Supporters of Poilievre's plan praise it as a decisive and long overdue measure against the fentanyl epidemic, lauding his willingness to impose strict penalties on traffickers while simultaneously expanding treatment options for those suffering from addiction. This is about protecting Canadians, said one advocate. Poilievre is treating these traffickers as what they are, mass murderers. Critics, however, warn that harsh mandatory minimums may not be the most effective approach to reducing drug-related deaths. Legal experts caution that such policies could strain the justice system, lead to increased incarceration rates, and fail to address the root causes of addiction. Criminalizing fentanyl at these levels without broader harm reduction strategies may drive the drug trade further underground, one legal analyst noted. We need to be careful that these policies don't end up targeting low-level offenders while leaving the real kingpins untouched. The proposal also raises legal and constitutional questions, with some speculating that mandatory life sentences could face challenges under Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Debate continues over whether such measures align with public health best practices or represent an overly punitive response to a complex crisis. As Canada grapples with the deadly consequences of fentanyl, Poilievre's plan has ignited a broader conversation on the balance between enforcement, rehabilitation, and harm reduction in addressing the opioid epidemic. Whether his approach will resonate with voters and withstand legal scrutiny remains to be seen.